Episode 193, Being a Warrior, Not a Worrier.
You're listening to the very best podcast in the world on health, wealth, and happiness. Please remember to leave a review and share with all your friends and family. And here is your host, Lars Hilser.
And goddamn it, it's hump day. Welcome to the very best podcast in the world, your only source in the universe for personal supremacy through health, wealth, and happiness. Now, today's episode is, I don't like this whole motivational bullshit because motivation can only come from inside of yourself. So the terminology I'm using is provocative in both ways, but justifiably so, as you will find out in this episode right after housekeeping. Views are my own. If you don't, not blah. And sharing is caring, the more important thing, where I am asking humbly and getting on your fucking nerves to share this episode or the past episode or future episode with someone who could also benefit from it. You know, maybe you didn't find it very beneficial yourself because maybe you are a warrior and not a worrier, but maybe you know a worrier that could really participate, or benefit from this episode. And so I am humbly asking you to share it. If you think this episode is good or you don't think it's, that good, share it anyhow through, your most favorite social media channels or podcast app. It's rather easily done and it helps this community grow even further. So in that sense, let's get started with today's episode. And most importantly, how to stop being a worrier and becoming into a warrior. So I think we have to start out with really an interesting quote that's been kind of with me for a very, very, very long time. I don't know where it's from originally. Supposedly, I think it's Einstein. I couldn't think that he actually said it. I never really researched it because it's too good. It's like this fantasy that you want to upkeep, but you don't want to ruin it by research. That's kind of like with this quote. And the quote is that worrying is like interest on a debt you don't owe. And let that sink in for just a minute, right? You worry pretty much all day about things which are more likely than not going to happen, period. And having worked in the insurance industry for quite a couple of years, you get to understand that insurances are pretty good. They're pretty good product. But at the end of the day, you can take out insurance on pretty much anything. And the less likely an incident is going to happen, that is contained or that is in your, level of coverage, the more happier the insurance company is going to be. No bullshit. So they're going to, make sure to have all of their go out of jail cards and, whatever. Long story to be discussed maybe at another time. But even smaller things you worry about, right? Thinking of kids, whenever I leave the compound, as I so lovingly call it, meanwhile, which is rather seldom because I don't want to really be around people. But if I leave, I'll see all these kids in the supermarket with their helmet on, and it's just that the only thing that's missing is bubble wrap, around these kids. And I don't want to say that kids are not precious. They are. But I fucking survived, and I'm retarded physically. I don't have depth perception, and that's a good chance for getting killed as a kid, right? And I didn't die. And I remember a situation where, I'm originally from a very small village in northern Germany with supposedly 800 citizens. I'm having trouble putting together 800 citizens, so I think it's subsidy frauds by the farmers for some reason that they counted the cows or whatever. But anyhow, a few years into staying there, I was, in my late teens, either, totally drunk, or totally baked, or both. And for some reason, I was taking part in like this mayor's meeting, town hall meeting kind of thing. It wasn't really a town hall, it was the local pub that everything happened at. But also another story. So anyway, we were there for some reason, friends and I, and there was this jerk off that had moved to town from Hamburg, from a large city, and he was arguing that we need a traffic light on the main street, which maybe, I don't know, over the course of a day, 150 cars drove through there. And so anyhow, he was arguing for a traffic light because that was the way his kids were going to school. And I couldn't help myself but think, it's like, if your kids are too stupid to cross the street, then, and, we did that for, I don't know how long I went to school there, 3 years, 4 years. Yeah, you look left and you look right, and then you take your bike and you go over the street. You can't, you can't rule out categorically accidents, right? You can't, that just won't fucking happen, and yeah, you can get into an accident. It's this snowflake society, snowflake Care Bear society, where, you want to categorically rule out every risk. Well, here's the catch with that. Not only are you going to create degenerates because they're not going to pay attention anymore because, yeah, I'm wearing a helmet. What the fuck can happen? Right? And all of this protective gear bullshit, right? You don't take as much care anymore in, being in society. And how the fuck did I get there? So anyhow, how do you stop worrying about shit? Well, you do a risk assessment in your head very briefly. Right? And you don't need a background in finance to be able to do that. In that you ask yourself, we're getting back to awareness again and again and again, awareness about the present moment. And if you're caught in worrying about something, it's like, what is the likelihood of that, what I'm worrying about, actually happening? Right? Because a lot of us, I remember this situation when I went to school in the United States. It was like these supposed I think it was called angel dust, this drug that, people were, the bad guys were selling, giving to kids away free at school and to get them hooked. And, I was like, that's a fucking stupid business model, giving away your drugs for free. To get somebody hooked and then for that person to buy somewhere. I don't get it. And anyhow, the parents were totally psyched, and I told my parents about that, and they were like, yeah, there is a low possibility of that happening. Just pay attention. Don't take any of that shit despite peer pressure, yada, yada, yada. And that was it. The likelihood of that happening was so low. It was just this folklore being told, obviously, amongst teachers, and then, spread as the truth, which back in the early 90s with the internet in its infancy, it was very difficult to research shit like that, and so everybody was frightened by the news, and, and now, you see something on the news and you research it and you just start worrying about shit. And that's really where you need to cut out the news. If that's your, if you're not capable of reducing the news that you take in to its literal, communication value, which is clickbait. That's what it boils down to. Take some time to listen to independent journalists. They're way better. Your Glenn Greenwald, for instance, and, all of those kind of folks. They're true journalists, by the way. Nothing of that is left in the media, in the corporate media. So, where do you get frightened? Why do you get frightened? That's something you need to investigate on your own. And once you have, and again, we're back to awareness, you need to investigate what the risk of that thing that you're worried about actually taking place again. When you've got that done, then you start to really think about the risk. And the risk is usually way lower than the thing you actually worry about. And then you're good. And that's really fucking it. Let's go through an example right quick. I was really worried about, I'm from a family of civil servants at the end of the day. So it was like, normal income, nothing out of the ordinary. Don't tread too far, just stay in your little bubble. And I went self-employed. And my family was like, are you fucking insane? And I was like, no, I'm good. Thank you very much. I'm taking this risk. And it was a fucking stupid risk because that's something, I thought was rather easy, acquiring clients. Well, it wasn't. It was fucking difficult. And so with that came financial difficulties in my life. I think I've repeatedly talked about this, and to a degree where it was just fucking difficult to survive. And however, that made you from worrier to warrior, because all of a sudden you had to figure out things that nobody had taught you, that you were never exposed to, and you were left with a situation all by yourself. And then you have to start figuring out how shit works, and that makes you a warrior, because all of a sudden you have to negotiate with people. It's like you negotiate with somebody you owe money, but you can't fucking pay. It's like, hey, I want to, but I can't. And that's a very easy conversation to have once you've learned how to do it, because right, you have the intent, right, and justifiably so, because you went into this contract, into this obligation you want to pay, but at the moment you can't, right? But you're so ashamed and you're so set back, and it's like, and you go into this bubble, you become this recluse, and you don't answer the phone, and that kind of shit. And all of a sudden I said, I went to get advice from a guy that I'd met over the web, one of my first clients, actually. I said, what am I supposed to do? And he was like, well, just pick up the fucking phone, tell them, hey, I want to, can't, this is the situation, this is where I'm going to be in 3 months projected, and then I'm going to pay you. And I did. It was so fucking easy. The guy was like, yeah, okay, shit, but okay, there you go. And the situation was solved, and I could carry on without worrying anymore. And that took the edge off. So how do you turn yourself from a worrier into a warrior, rather? And I think we're pretty much back to square one and what I had mentioned earlier. It's like you have to, you have to catch yourself worrying. You can't be in this worrying downward spiral. It doesn't work, right? You have to generally increase your awareness. And once you catch yourself being worried about something, it's like, how do I dig myself out of this? Now, number one, again, sorry, I started with number two. Number one is that actually a risk? Do a risk assessment. There's tons of literature on that online. If there is a likelihood of that thing happening that you're actually worried about, is like, how do I mitigate that? How do I mitigate the risk? Right? Is it something that can actually happen? Will it impact my life? What's the likelihood? Yada, yada, yada. There you go. And then, you confront what you are worried about. And that's where you actually turn to a warrior. Now, sorry, it took me, a quarter of an hour to explain that at the end of the day, because it was rather simple. I should condense my episodes down to the title. No, seriously though. But I hope that gave, some clarity to the rather bizarre title that I chose. But hey, clickbait. So in that sense, I hope you have a nice rest of your hump day. And if you've already kind of ended your hump day, have a good night. We'll be in touch tomorrow when we are going to talk about habits. See you, folks. Take care.